Hey everyone, welcome back. You ready to dive in?
Always.
All right, today we're going back to April 2017. Things were a little tense between the US and Canada, to say the least.
Uh-oh. What happened?
Well, Justin Trudeau, the Canadian Prime Minister, he made this super unexpected visit to Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort in Florida.
Okay, and Trump was president at this point, right?
Yeah, just a couple of months into his presidency. And get this, the visit comes right after Trump threatened tariffs on Canadian imports.
Whoa, hold on. I thought the U.S. and Canada had a pretty solid relationship. Why would he do that?
That's the million-dollar question, right? That's what makes this whole thing
Mhm.
so fascinating. Let's try and unpack this, all right?
Sounds good to me. Let's do it.
Okay, so the articles mentioned Trump was talking about a 25% tariff on imports from Canada and Mexico. What was the deal with that? What was going on?
Well, the big thing Trump was focused on at the time was border security. He was really worried about illegal drugs, fentanyl especially, and people coming across the U.S. border illegally.
Right, I remember that being a big part of his campaign.
Exactly. So he saw these tariffs as a way to, force Canada and Mexico to do more to tighten up security at their borders, kind of like putting pressure on them.
So basically, hit them where it hurts their wallets.
Pretty much. But a 25% tariff, that's a huge GE number. It wasn't just an empty threat. People were freaking out.
Yeah, I bet. What was the reaction like? Were people actually worried this was going to happen?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Officials from Canada and Mexico were super concerned, and even China was speaking out against it. And it wasn't just governments. All sorts of industry groups were predicting this whole economic disaster if those tariffs went into effect.
Like, what kind of disaster are we talking about?
Well, they were saying it could hurt all three countries' economies,
Uh-huh.
Canada, the U.S., and Mexico. They were predicting inflation would spike, and we could see job losses, especially in industries that do a lot of cross-border business. Think manufacturing, agriculture, things like that.
So not good.
Definitely not. And to make matters worse for Trudeau, all this was happening while he was already dealing with some tough stuff back in Canada.
Oh yeah, what was going on back home?
Well, the Canadian economy was slowing down. Things weren't looking great. And the cost of living was going up, which was making things harder for regular Canadians. So people weren't happy.
Right. It makes sense. If things aren't going well in your own country, the last thing you need is another country messing with your economy.
Exactly. And all of this was reflected in Trudeau's, approval ratings. They were dropping. And polls were starting to show that the Conservative Party, the opposition, might actually have a chance to win the next election.
Wow. So Trudeau's in a tough spot, huh? Economy's shaky, his popularity's dropping, and now Trump's threatening to make things even worse with these tariffs. No wonder he jumped on a plane to Florida.
Yeah, it was definitely a high-pressure situation.
So he gets to Mar-a-Lago. What happens? What do we know about this meeting?
Well, that's the thing. We don't know a lot, unfortunately. I mean, we know Trudeau brought his public safety minister, Ralph Goodale, so it seems like border security was the main topic they talked about.
Right. That makes sense.
But as far as what was actually said, any kind of deals they might have made or compromises, that stuff is still pretty much a mystery.
Interesting. So the article also mentioned that Canada sends a ton of oil to the U.S.
Hmm.
Did that come up at all? Was that part of the tariff threat?
Yeah, that's what's really wild about all this. At the time, sources were saying that Trump wasn't planning on exempting crude oil from those tariffs.
Oh, wow. So even oil was on the table.
It seems like it. And that was a big deal because, Canada's the fourth largest oil producer in the entire world, and most of the oil exports go straight to the U.S.
So if those tariffs had actually happened, it would have been a massive shakeup for both countries' energy sectors.
For sure. It could have been a real mess.
So here's the situation. Trudeau's dealing with problems at home and elections coming up, and he's got this massive tariff threat hanging over his head.
Yeah.
Then he flies down to Florida to meet with Trump, who, as we all know, was known for his unique negotiating style. Talk about high stakes.
You got that right. It's like something out of a movie. And the biggest question is, did this meeting actually change anything? Did Trudeau get Trump to back down?
Yeah. Did he manage to save the day?
Well, we know the tariffs weren't put in place right away, and eventually they did work out a new trade deal. But what exactly happened in that room at Mar-a-Lago? What was said? What deals were made, if any? We just don't know. It's a mystery.
A mystery that could have changed the course of U.S.-Canada relations, huh? Makes you wonder. Well, folks, we're out of time for today, but that's definitely something to think about. Catch you on the next Deep Dive.